Right, okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the fourth period, where we discuss the games that went on last night in the NHL, some topics that maybe are of note. But before we get started, can I ask a favor of you that if you enjoy the video, if you'd like to see more, would you please mind dropping the video a like and please subscribing to the channel? But anyway, let's get right into it. And where else to begin than in Washington, where Washington took on Buffalo in a game that surprisingly had many goals, but none from Jack Eichel or Alex Ovechkin. So I was very surprised to see Carter Hutton start for Buffalo. I know that Linus Ullmark apparently came in later, but it's Carter Hutton. Surely you can't start him, but Buffalo did. So Backstrom is back on the line with Alex Ovechkin. Dylan Cousins was in the lineup for Buffalo, which is good to see. He had a great World Juniors, and he looked like a promising player to me. And Rasmus Dahlin looked buff. He looked like he put on a few pounds, like he's been working out during the off-season, which is good. It'll certainly help him. It's a contract year for him. But that 10 months off for Buffalo, it did show, to be fair. It was a hard game. It was a good game. And it was a weird game. Jeff Skinner on the fourth line, what's up with that? So, in the first period, there was Ovi battling for the puck relatively soon. He got the puck to Backstrom. Backstrom puts it in the net. Taylor Hall then replies with his first goal for Buffalo. He had a goal and an assist on his Buffalo Sabres debut, which is good to see. He was on the line with Eichel and Olofsson. That's a line which would do any damage against any team. Unfortunately, some of the other lines on Buffalo are a bit suspect, and you could accuse Samsonov of leaving too much of the net open for Taylor Hall for the goal, but that's the thing. That's a big talking point I want to talk about, obviously, on this video, is Ilya Samsonov. So, the Capitals obviously brought Henrik Lundqvist to the organization, hoping he would be a good backup. He's got the NHL experience, obviously, hoping that he could tutor Ilya Samsonov a bit. And now, all of a sudden, Ilya Samsonov is the starter without an older backup to tutor him, to relieve some of that pressure if he isn't performing. I do think Vitek Vanacek is going to be a good backup in the NHL, but definitely not one to the level of Henrik Lundqvist. And how much trust can you really put into Vitek Vanacek, especially now he isn't NHL ready yet? Samsonov still has some learning to do. He has a steep learning curve, and that showed against Buffalo. And it was Buffalo, which is the problem. If you play Boston, if you're going to play the New York teams, if you're going to play Philly, Pittsburgh, you are going to need a goalie that stops most of the shots. And I don't know if Ilya Samsonov is just ready for that yet. Anyway, in the second, there was a goal from John Carlson. He was a bit skewed to the right. The Buffalo defense was atrocious, though. Absolutely atrocious. The way they just let a defenseman go through. He takes a shot. He converts. Reed then converts for Buffalo. Samsonov kind of made a mess of it, but that was definitely more on the defense than it was on Samsonov. And I'm not hating on Samsonov here. I think he's going to be a great goalie in the NHL. But I don't know that time is now. He is ready to to play some games, obviously, but I don't think he's ready to play the majority of games, which obviously is going to be a problem for Washington. But there is no way now to go around it. They couldn't have known that Henrik Lundqvist would have had open heart surgery. Maybe they would have kept Holtby. I doubt it though. But it is what it is. And in the third, Jake McCabe gets one for Buffalo. You think, okay, this is the game. They might make a bit of a comeback, but Eric Stahl gives it away to Jacob Vrana. It's 5-3, sorry. Olofsson, with 2 minutes left, snipes it, and then Gareth Hathaway from inside his own blue line converts. Now, the takeaways from this game is that Washington has found more than one way to score. Obviously, you think of Washington, you think of Alex Ovechkin left side. He gets the puck, he shoots it, goal. But he had 2 apples, or maybe even more, I think. But on the first 2 goals, he had an assist each time. And Washington is really learning to to play around the teams, not just to shoot from a distance. They're playing it around, they're patiently awaiting their opportunities, and they're getting those goals, which is good to see. But again, that defense needs to really become one unit and not just a unit of individual players who perform on the same team. Then the second game was a big surprise for me, and we go from Washington to New York, where the Islanders were taking on the Rangers, and it wasn't the debut that Keandre Miller or Lafreniere had hoped for. Shesterkin was actually picked over Georgiev in net for the Rangers. It's not really a surprise. If you had to ask me, I think they would have divided the games 50-50 between them, and then a bit more for the informed goalie. And Semyon Varlamov was picked over Ilya Sorokin for the Islanders. It's not surprising though. Last year, Varlamov and Greiss were a good 1-2 tandem. But Semyon Varlamov for an entire season, I'm not sure. Anyway, Ross Johnson also was dressed for the New York Islanders, and that's kind of a weird thing that I was glad about, Ross Johnson, but he is one of my favourite big men / enforcers in the league, and he later on had that accident with Rooney, where he accidentally bulldozed him, but he wasn't looking at Rooney, it was not on purpose. That's really unfortunate for him, and I hope it's nothing more than just a knock and that he's good to play. But, yeah, yikes, 3-0 after one period. So, the first goal came less than 3 minutes in. Brock Nelson on the power play, then about a minute later, Anders Lee. And then, to finish the period, Matthew Barzal got a goal of his own. And we could sit here and discuss the game, and I've got some notes, but there's different talking points right here. There's dumb penalties taken by the Rangers. A lot of them. Then the third period started with Lemieux obviously in the penalty box for a scuffle. What was that all about? A scuffle with J.J. Pajot. So the second ends, and Pajot just flat out punches Brendan Lemieux in the face, and Lemieux falls. I mean, it's funny though, because I don't particularly I don't like him at all, Brendan Lemieux and Tony DeAngelo. It's not to say that they can't play in the NHL. I think Tony DeAngelo is a great defenseman. I just don't like him as people. So I had a good chuckle right there. But what was that all about? What was said? I'd like to know what was being said. Maybe that question got answered in an interview. I haven't seen it yet. I'll definitely do some research on that. But this New York rivalry is going to be heaps of fun. And then in the third, as I said, it was a 4-on-4. And then Tony DeAngelo takes a double minor. And that's something that we've seen a lot in these games for every single team, that they're taking dumb penalties. Obviously, the Leafs, Zach Bogosian, a grabbing penalty, lots of tripping penalties. Here, the double minor for Tony DeAngelo. Teams need to cut that out. And again, Shesterkin, like I said, didn't have a good game at all. He could have maybe done better on the goal or two. I'm not entirely sure about it. Although he did deny Matthew Barzal on a breakaway, and straight after that, he collides with Eberle. There's a goal given, then New York challenges it for goaltender interference, which was the right call. The challenge is upheld. There's no goal. And that didn't change much for the game. Obviously, the game was 1 for the Islanders, but it's good for the morale. Now, the thing with the Rangers is I think they'll come good. I predicted them to come into the playoffs, and it was the first game of the season. I'm not drawing many conclusions from the first game of the season. Obviously, there's a few talking points which you can take away from each game. But New York needs to gel. They need time to gel. Obviously, they've got Lafreniere coming in. They've got Jacob Trouba. They've changed the lines. Jack Johnson is playing now. They don't have Henrik Lundqvist at the back. I know lots of people were getting on Henrik Lundqvist. Were getting on his back as his tenure in New York came to a close. But even if he's not stopping that many pucks, it's Henrik Lundqvist. He has a voice. He can lead from the back. He can lead those young defensemen or those lines that perhaps are experienced in the NHL but haven't really played with each other a lot yet. And that is really missing in net for New York. And then obviously you have the lines with Capo Caco. He still needs to really adapt to the NHL. And I like Kaapo Kakko a lot. I think he's going to be a star player someday, but he needs a bit of time still. And Panarin was in the second line with Kaapo, Mika Zibanejad on the first, and on the third was Lafrenière with Gauthier. It's a mess. I think, yes, you don't want to rush Lafrenière, but it's Alexis Lafrenière. Put Panarin on the first with Zibanejad, or put Lafrenière on the first with Zibanejad, and then you're going to get those goals that you so desperately crave and need as a New York Rangers fan. But there's more games to come, obviously, very soon. I will be discussing those on the Rangers, the Islanders. But the Islanders looked very good. They picked up right where they left off in the playoffs last year, and I'm excited to see what they do against these other teams in the East, against Washington, against Boston, against the likes of Pittsburgh and Philly. And next we have... the dog is barking for some reason. Anyway, we have the Oilers and the Canucks. Now, that was a game that was already played the night before. The Canucks obviously took that one. And the big talking point right here is last game, the first game between the Oilers and the Canucks, I said that Braden Holtby probably wouldn't start the next one. He had a few good saves in them here and there, but it wasn't great. I know that's understandable. It's a new defense in front of him. It's a new team. Again, like I said with the Rangers, it takes time to gel with that team. So, Vancouver went with Demko, and Oilers again in those neon orange and dark blue kits. I don't like them. Just play the regular blue, the navy blue, the royal blue, whatever you want to call it. Play the blue and the orange shoulder pads. They're much better than the orange blue ones. They're much better than these ones. Just do it. And so the game started with a power play for the Oilers, and that was something last game too that needed improvement on the Oilers side, is a power play. Last game they were 0 for 4. It was terrible. It was really bad last game. But they started with a power play, rather. 1 for 1, they get the goal. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins combines with Draisaitl, with McDavid, and it can only be good. And then to end the first, Demko again had a problem. He could have released the puck. He gets it. He keeps hold of it. He could have just let it go, run down the clock with 2.5 seconds to go, but he doesn't. And then with 2.5 seconds to go, Vancouver loses the draw. McDavid gets the puck. He gets a shot on goal. He gets his own rebound, and he puts it in with 0.6 seconds left on the clock. Now, that's got to be demoralizing. And yes, that's Demko. Didn't have a great game, obviously. On the other side, Mikko Koskinen did have a good game, and as I said, yes, Mikko Koskinen needs to be replaced by the Oilers, and I stand by that. Obviously, he's going to have good games. Vancouver has something like 40 shots, and he only had 2 goals on that, which is good. But he needs to be replaced, and the goalie situation in Vancouver is a weird one in that Holtby, like I discussed last video, first 7 seasons in the NHL had something like a 927 save percentage. And the last 3, 906. So he's been on the decline for the past seasons, and I was curious to find out if that decline would stop and if it would perhaps get a bit better, if it was just stay at that level in Vancouver, or if it would continue on and his save percentage would just drop down. And there's no telling this early on in the game with the season, with just 1 game played each. But the situation of Vancouver with the goalies is going to be a weird one. Do you give Holtby that time? Or do you go for Demko and you have Holtby as a backup? It's something that needs to be discussed, and maybe I'll do a video on it if I can find the time. I'd love to. I don't think I have the time, but if I can find it, I'll definitely do one. Other talking points, obviously, McDavid just did what McDavid does. 3 goals, 1 assist, an incredible goal as well on the power play with 4 Vancouver guys around him. That was doing the rounds on YouTube, on Twitter. Everyone's probably seen it. What can you say? It's Connor McDavid. There's not much you can say except just look at it and stare in awe. Leon Draisaitl at 4 assists. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 2 goals, 1 assist. So those 3 main players are off to a good start. Now, McDavid, obviously, the first game didn't have a great game, and he took it personally. As the Jordan meme goes, he took it personally. However, a talking point about this game is Quinn Hughes. So, as people who watch these videos, which currently is no one, 0 subscribers and no views. That's fine though. I just enjoy doing it. But as people who know me know, I am high on Quinn Hughes. I think he's an exceptional talent, exceptional defenseman. And he showed some spice. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins hits Brock Besser the wrong way. Quinn Hughes responds. Although it was the wrong timing, because obviously you're on a power play, and then he responds. He takes a penalty. It's 4-4. Then the Oilers go on a power play, which the Oilers score from. But he showed some fight, and I think that's something that if Quinn Hughes can really add to his game, the excellence on both sides of the ice, plus not being afraid to go into people's faces, not being afraid to draw those challenges, to respond to those people, he is going to be a star in the league. He's going to be a star anyway, but what a player that would be to have on your team. Elsewhere, that's about all the games I really watched all of. I did watch the OT between the Coyotes and the Sharks, but elsewhere the Canes easily beat the Red Wings. Well, easily. Thomas Greiss was added to the Red Wings, obviously, and he had a great game. He had 41 saves out of 43 shots. The Red Wings did hit the bar twice, one of which was in the last 30 seconds of the game. And if Greiss can actually play like this 70-80% of the time for the Red Wings, Detroit might actually really have something to grasp onto and to build on. I think Greiss was a great ad for Detroit. They still don't look good at all, though. The Canes, I expect more from them, obviously, with guys like Aho, like Svechnikov, Niederreiter, and then at the back they've got guys like Hamilton and Slavin. It's an incredible team. And they did do the job. 3-0, get the shutout, get the 2 points. But you need to be scoring more than just 2 goals on 43 shots when it's not an open net. Elsewhere, also Calgary lost at the hands of Winnipeg, and that was an interesting game. So that was a rematch of the play-in round between the Jets and the Flames, obviously, where the Jets quite easily got beaten at the hand of the Flames. But this game, Laine, just Patrick Laine doing Patrick Laine stuff, getting 2 goals, sniping on a breakaway instead of dangling and putting in the puck from close range. But that doesn't matter. He gets the goal on the breakaway. And Winnipeg was actually down 3-1 at one point, but they came back, and that was a stark contrast to last summer, where they didn't. Granted, last summer, Mark Scheifele was out. Obviously, Patrick Laine was out. They didn't have Stastny. They didn't have some of the players that they have on the team now, but that shows that they really are here to play for the playoffs, not just to make up the numbers, which I like, and I predicted Winnipeg for the playoffs. It was only one game, but if Patrick Laine can't continue that form, I don't see why they can't, with guys like Hellebuck in the team, with guys like Scheifele surrounding him. And then elsewhere, Boston beats New Jersey on a shootout. It's expected. The Preds comfortably beat Columbus 3-1, which is a bit surprising with the defense that Columbus has, but the Preds isn't a bad team at all. And then the Sharks beat the Coyotes. There was 2 goals and an apple for Hertl, 1 goal and 2 for Evander Kane, so that's good to see Evander Kane playing at the fullest of his capabilities. Arizona scored with 6 men with 4 seconds to go, obviously. That was quite surprising. Arizona managing to score quite a few goals. I did not expect that from them, but 1 game in again. And the Sharks had the worst power play of the season contender in overtime. Just look it up if you haven't. Anyway, that was it for the 4th period, the second episode of the 4th period. If you haven't, again, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Please do consider liking the video, sharing it if you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of the video, what you thought of the talking points. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Something else you might like to add? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will talk to you very soon. Norman, out.